The phone rang at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was folding laundry in the bedroom, the same bedroom where my husband Marcus and I had slept for 12 years. The same bed where we conceived our daughter Emma. The same walls that held our wedding photos, vacation snapshots, and all the evidence of a life built together. I didn't recognize the number. Out of state. I almost didn't answer, thinking it was spam, another robocall about my car's extended warranty, or a fake IRS threat. But something made me pick up. Maybe instinct, maybe fate. Hello? There was a pause, then a woman's voice, young, confident, with a slight edge of nervousness underneath. Is this Jennifer? Yes, who is this? Another pause. I heard her take a breath, as if gathering courage. My name is Vanessa. I think we need to talk about Marcus. My heart didn't pound. My hands didn't shake. Instead, something cold and clear settled over me, like ice water filling my veins. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the laundry basket forgotten at my feet. Go on. She must have expected tears, shock, denial. My calmness seemed to throw her off. I've been seeing your husband for 8 months. We met at a conference in Chicago. We've been together ever since. I looked at the wedding photo on the dresser. Marcus in his suit. Me in my white dress, both of us smiling like we believed in forever. That was 13 years ago. I was 25. He was 28. We thought we knew everything about love. Why are you calling me? Vanessa's voice changed, became harder, more confident now that I wasn't crying. Because he's been lying to you. He told you he's traveling for work, right? All those business trips? He's with me? Last month when he said he was in Denver? We were in Miami. The week before that? We were at my apartment. I picked up a towel from the basket and folded it methodically. Corners matched perfectly, smooth, even creases. And you're telling me this because? Because I love him, and he loves me. He's just too guilty to tell you himself. He's afraid of hurting you, afraid of disrupting Emma's life. But we want to be together. Really together. There it was. She knew my daughter's name. She knew enough about our life to weaponize it. So you thought you'd do the dirty work for him? I thought you deserved to know the truth. I almost laughed. The truth? As if truth had anything to do with this phone call. This was about power, about marking territory, about forcing my hand so Marcus would have no choice but to leave. Vanessa, can I ask you something? Sure. Does Marcus know you're calling me? Silence. That told me everything. No, she finally admitted. But he'll thank me later. We both will. Once this is out in the open, we can finally be together without hiding. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood looked exactly as it always did. The Johnson sprinkler watering their lawn. Mrs. Chen walking her corgi. The mailman making his rounds. Everything normal, everything the same, while my world was being dismantled by a woman I'd never met. Vanessa, I appreciate you calling. Really, I do. She sounded surprised. You do? Yes, because now I know exactly who I'm dealing with. What do you mean? I reached for my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I'd started it the moment she said Marcus's name. 12 minutes of recorded confession. 12 minutes of her detailing dates, locations, intimate details about my husband's travel schedule and lies. Nothing. Just that the truth is important. You said so yourself. Jennifer, I'm not trying to hurt you. I just think you should know that Marcus isn't happy. He hasn't been for a long time. He tells me things. He tells me he feels trapped. Trapped. The word settled in my chest like a stone. What else does he tell you? She took the bait. For the next 10 minutes, she talked. And talked. And talked. She told me about their first kiss in a hotel bar, about how Marcus said he'd never felt this way before, about how they talked about getting a place together, maybe in Austin, where her family lived, about how he'd mentioned that our marriage had been dead for years and he was only staying for Emma's sake. I let her talk. I asked gentle questions. I stayed calm, and the entire time, my phone recorded every word. Vanessa, can I ask you something personal? I guess. Do you know how much Marcus makes? She hesitated. He said around $80,000 a year. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Did he tell you about our house? He said you're renting. Did he tell you about his student loans? He said he paid them off. Did he tell you that last year he borrowed $15,000 from my parents for a business investment that never happened? Silence. Did he tell you that 3 months ago, I found out he has a gambling problem, that he's lost over $30,000 in online poker? More silence. Vanessa, my husband is a liar. You're right about that. But he's not lying just to me. He's lying to you too. That's not true. He wouldn't. We own our house. It's in my name only because his credit is destroyed. He makes $62,000, not $80,000. And those business trips, half of them are real. The other half, I thought he was going to Gamblers Anonymous meetings in the city. I guess I was wrong about that. I could hear her breathing, fast and uncertain now. Why are you telling me this? Because you called me. Because you wanted the truth. Well, here it is. Marcus is 41 years old. He's $50,000 in debt. He has a daughter who needs braces and college savings. He has a wife who has supported him through job losses, depression, and addiction. And he has a girlfriend who thinks she's getting a prize. You're lying. Am I? Ask him. Ask him about the debt. Ask him why his name isn't on our mortgage. Ask him where he was really going on Thursday nights for the last year. Vanessa's voice cracked. He loves me. Maybe he does. Maybe he loves the version of himself he gets to be with you. The successful, unburdened, free version. But that's not who he is. That's who he wishes he was. I don't believe you. You don't have to. Give it time. 6 months, maybe a year. When the shine wears off and real life kicks in, you'll see. But by then, you'll be in too deep. Just like I was. I heard her crying now. Small, desperate sounds. Why are you being so calm about this? That was the question, wasn't it? Why wasn't I screaming, crying, begging her to leave my husband alone? Why wasn't I falling apart? Because I'd already fallen apart. 6 months ago, when I found the gambling debts. A year ago, when I realized he was lying about the Thursday meetings. 2 years ago, when I felt him pulling away and blamed myself. I'd already grieved this marriage. I just hadn't buried it yet. Vanessa, thank you for calling. Really, you've given me clarity. What are you going to do? I looked at my phone. 23 minutes of recording. 23 minutes of confession, admission, proof. I'm going to make sure my daughter is taken care of. I'm going to make sure I'm taken care of. And I'm going to let Marcus make his own choices, with full knowledge of the consequences. Are you going to tell him I called? What do you think? I hung up before she could answer. I saved the recording. I backed it up to 3 different places. Then I sat on the bed, surrounded by half-folded laundry, and finally let myself feel it. Not sadness, not anger. Just a cold, clear certainty that everything was about to change. And for the first time in years, I was ready. I didn't confront Marcus that night. When he came home at 6:30 p.m., briefcase in hand, tie loosened, I was in the kitchen making pasta. Emma was at the table doing homework, her dark hair falling across her face as she concentrated on fractions. She was 11, smart, observant, and completely unaware that her world was about to shift. "Hey," Marcus said, kissing my cheek. The same kiss he'd given me for years. Automatic, brief, meaningless. "Hey, how was work?" "Long. Peterson is on my case about the quarterly reports again." He set his briefcase down and loosened his tie further. "Smells good. What are we having?" "Spaghetti carbonara." He smiled, the same smile I'd fallen in love with 13 years ago. The same smile that probably made Vanessa's heart skip. "My favorite." I stirred the pasta and said nothing. I'd learned over the years that silence was more powerful than accusation. Silence made space for guilt to grow. "Dad, can you help me with this problem?" Emma held up her math worksheet. "Sure, kiddo. Let me change first." I watched him walk upstairs, watched him move through our house like everything was normal, like he hadn't spent the last 8 months building a second life with a woman who was young enough to still believe in fairy tales. After dinner, after Emma went to bed, after Marcus settled in front of the TV with a beer, I went upstairs to our home office. The small room where we kept files, bills, tax documents. The room where I'd discovered the gambling problem 6 months ago while looking for our insurance paperwork. I pulled out the file cabinet and started documenting everything. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals that didn't match his explanations. Credit card bills with charges in cities he'd supposedly been for work, except on dates that didn't align with his company's travel calendar. Hotel receipts, dinner charges for 2. Flowers I never received. I'd been collecting this evidence for months, not knowing what I'd do with it. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that there was an explanation. Part of me knew better. Now I had Vanessa's call. Now I had confirmation. Now I had a voice recording of his mistress detailing their affair, including specific dates, locations, and conversations. I opened my laptop and created a new folder. I labeled it Marcus Documentation and started organizing files. Financial records. The recording from today. Screenshots of text messages I'd found on his phone 3 months ago before he got better at deleting them. Emails from his work calendar showing discrepancies between his stated travel and his actual bookings. I worked methodically, calmly, building a case like I was preparing for a trial. Because in a way, I was. Around 11 p.m., Marcus came upstairs. "You coming to bed?" "In a bit. Just finishing some paperwork." He glanced at my screen, but I'd already minimized the folder. "Don't stay up too late." "I won't." He kissed the top of my head and went to the bedroom. 10 minutes later, I heard him snoring. I kept working until 2 a.m. When I finally had everything organized, backed up, and secure, I allowed myself to think about what came next. Divorce was obvious. But divorce on what terms? I could confront him tomorrow, play the recording, watch him scramble to explain. I could throw him out, call a lawyer, start the process immediately. But that felt reactive, emotional. That felt like what Vanessa expected, what Marcus probably feared. The scorned wife, the dramatic confrontation, the messy public scene. I didn't want drama. I wanted justice. I wanted to make sure that when this was over, Emma and I would be protected. That meant being smart, not just being right. I called my friend Rachel the next morning. Rachel was a divorce attorney, one of the best in the state. We'd met in college and stayed close even as our lives diverged. She'd handled some high-profile cases, the kind that made the news. "Jennifer, it's been too long. How are you?" "I need your help, professionally." Her tone changed immediately, became focused. "Tell me." I told her everything. The phone call from Vanessa. The recording. The evidence I'd been collecting. The gambling debts. The lies. Rachel was quiet for a long moment after I finished. "How are you holding up?" I'm fine? No, really, how are you? I looked out the window of the coffee shop where I'd gone to make this call in private. People walking by, living their ordinary lives, carrying their own secrets and sorrows. I'm tired. I'm angry, but I'm also clear. I know what I need to do. Good, because you're going to need that clarity. This isn't going to be easy. I know. The recording is solid. In this state, you only need one-party consent for recording phone calls, so it's legal. The financial evidence is good too. We can establish a pattern of deception and financial irresponsibility. What about custody? Emma's 11. The court will consider her preferences, but primary custody usually goes to the more stable parent. Given his financial issues and infidelity, you have a strong case. I don't want to use Emma as a weapon. I know you don't, but you do need to protect her, and yourself. Does Marcus know you're aware of the affair? No. Keep it that way for now. We need to prepare. Gather more documentation. Get a financial expert to assess the debt and what's marital versus what's his alone. Open a separate bank account in your name only and start moving your income there. Protect your assets. How long will this take? If he contests it, months, maybe over a year. If he doesn't, we can move faster. But Jennifer, you need to be ready. This is going to get ugly. He's going to feel cornered, attacked. Men like Marcus, when they're exposed, they don't usually go quietly. I know. Can you stay strong? Can you keep playing the role until we're ready to move? I thought about the last 12 years. The compromises, the forgiveness, the endless patience. The version of myself I'd become to keep the peace, to keep the marriage going, to keep Emma's world stable. Yes, I can do that. All right, let me draw up a preliminary strategy. Don't confront him. Don't let him know you're preparing. Act normal. Can you do that? I hung up and drove home, where Marcus was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table like it was any other Saturday morning. Where did you go? He asked. Coffee with Sarah. She's having issues with her mother-in-law again. He nodded, not really listening. I'm playing golf this afternoon. That okay? Sure. He looked at me then, really looked, as if sensing something had shifted. You seem different. Different how? I don't know. Quieter, maybe. I smiled, the same smile I'd given him for years. Just tired, didn't sleep well. He accepted this. He always accepted easy explanations. That was the problem with lying. Once you started, you assumed everyone else was honest. Over the next 2 weeks, I played the perfect wife. I cooked his favorite meals. I laughed at his jokes. I asked about his day. And the entire time, I was building my case, page by page, document by document. Rachel introduced me to a forensic accountant who specialized in divorce cases. His name was David Chen, a quiet man in his 50s who spoke in precise, measured tones. This is substantial debt, he said, reviewing the financial records I'd provided. Most of it was incurred after your marriage, which makes it marital debt in the eyes of the court. However, the gambling debts are different. We can argue that those were incurred without your knowledge and against the interest of the marriage. What does that mean for me? It means you won't be responsible for paying them. The court will likely assign them entirely to him. And the house? It's in your name solely. That was smart. It remains your separate property. He has no claim to it. I felt something loosen in my chest. Emma would keep her home. That was what mattered most. David continued. I've also looked at his income and spending patterns. There are regular cash withdrawals, usually on Fridays, that don't match any household expenses or bills. Do you know what those are for? Gambling. Online poker mostly. Sometimes sports betting. He made a note. That establishes a pattern of financial irresponsibility. Combined with the infidelity and the deception, You have a very strong case for primary custody and a favorable settlement. How favorable? He'll likely owe you spousal support for a period of time, given that you've been the more financially stable spouse. Child support is standard, and you keep the house, your retirement accounts, and your car. He keeps his debts. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt like the ending it was. I went home that evening and found Marcus packing for another business trip. Where to this time? I asked. Seattle, 3 days. Peterson wants me to meet with some potential clients. Seattle in November. Sounds cold. He zipped his suitcase. Yeah, I'll pack a jacket. I watched him move around our bedroom, selecting clothes, checking his phone, completely at ease with his deception. Marcus? Yeah? Do you love me? He looked up, startled by the question. Of course I do. Why would you ask that? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if we're just going through the motions. He came over and put his hands on my shoulders. Jen, we're fine. Every marriage has rough patches. We've been together a long time. It's normal. Normal. As if betrayal was just another stage of long-term commitment. Okay, have a safe trip. He kissed me, and I let him, even though I knew where he was really going. Even though I knew he'd be with Vanessa in some hotel, living the fantasy version of himself. The one without debt or responsibilities, or a wife who knew the truth. After he left, I sat in Emma's room while she slept. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. She didn't know that her father was a liar. She didn't know that her parents' marriage was ending. She didn't know that everything was about to change. But she would. Soon. I just had to wait for the right moment. Marcus left for Seattle on a Wednesday morning. I watched him load his suitcase into his car, watched him drive away with that easy confidence of someone who believed his lies were working. I waited exactly 30 minutes. Then I opened my laptop and checked the bank account I'd been monitoring, the one he didn't know I had access to. He'd been sloppy when setting up his separate checking account for the affair, using our home address and a slight variation of his usual email. It took me less than a week to figure out the login credentials. There it was, a charge at SeaTac Airport for parking. So he really had flown to Seattle. That was new. Usually the affairs played out in cities closer to home, easy drives where he could maintain the illusion of work travel. I checked Vanessa's social media. She'd been quiet since our phone call 2 weeks ago. No posts, no updates. But her privacy settings weren't great. I could still see her tagged photos. There. Posted 1 hour ago by someone named Brittany. A photo of the Seattle waterfront at sunrise, tagged with Chakra PNW, best friend trip, Seattle adventure. And there in the corner of the photo, barely visible, a woman who looked exactly like the profile pictures I'd found. Vanessa. So they were together, in Seattle. While he told me it was a work trip, I took screenshots, documented everything, added it to my growing file of evidence. Emma came downstairs, backpack slung over her shoulder, ready for school. Is Dad already gone? Yeah, honey. He had an early flight. When's he back? Sunday night. She nodded, accepting this like she'd accepted all his other absences. But I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of disappointment that broke my heart. Em, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you miss Dad when he travels? She shrugged, 11-year-old feigned indifference. I guess. But he travels a lot, so I'm used to it. Does it bother you that he's gone so much? She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw that she was smarter than I'd given her credit for. Mom, is something wrong? No, baby. I'm just checking in. You seem sad lately. I pulled her into a hug. I'm okay, I promise. Just work stress. She hugged me back, tight, and I realized that whatever happened next, I had to protect her from the worst of it. She couldn't know about Vanessa. She couldn't know the details of her father's betrayal. She was too young for that burden. After I dropped Emma at school, I drove to Rachel's office. She was waiting with David Chen, the forensic accountant, and another woman I didn't recognize. Jennifer, this is Patricia Morales. She's a private investigator, one of the best. Patricia was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that suggested she didn't miss much. She shook my hand. Rachel filled me in on your situation. I've reviewed the documentation you've provided. It's thorough. Thank you. But we need more. We need irrefutable proof of the affair. The phone call recording is good, but it's secondhand. We need photos, videos, documented proof that he's with this woman during times he claims to be working. He's with her now, in Seattle, supposedly on a business trip. Patricia nodded. I know. I tracked his flight. I have an associate in Seattle who can document their activities. Hotels, restaurants, public displays of affection. Whatever we can get. It felt invasive, dirty, hiring someone to photograph my husband with his mistress. But it was also necessary. The law required proof. Feelings weren't enough. How much will this cost? Rachel answered, I'm covering it. Consider it an investment in your future. Patricia is very good, very discreet, and this kind of documentation can make the difference between a fair settlement and a favorable one. I don't want your money, Rachel. You're not taking my money. You're accepting help from a friend who wants to make sure you and Emma are protected. Let me do this. I swallowed the pride, the shame, the feeling that I should be able to handle this alone. Okay, thank you. Patricia opened her briefcase and pulled out a tablet. Let's talk about your husband's patterns. You said he usually books hotels. Any particular chain? Marriott usually. He has points. Credit card? The one in his name. I have the account details. She made notes. Good. I'll monitor charges and match them to locations. I'll also need any information you have on Vanessa. Full name, age, address, workplace. I provided everything I'd gathered. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She called you 2 weeks ago, Patricia said. Has she tried to contact you again? No. Has Marcus mentioned her at all? Even indirectly? No. He acts like everything is normal. That's common. The compartmentalization. They keep the affair separate from home life, like it's happening in a different reality. She looked up from her notes. Jennifer, I've handled dozens of these cases. I need you to prepare yourself for what we might find. Photos of them together, being intimate, happy. It's going to hurt. Are you ready for that? Was I? I'd already heard Vanessa's voice, heard her talk about loving my husband, heard her describe their time together. How much worse could pictures be? I'm ready. Over the next 3 days, Patricia sent updates. Marcus and Vanessa had checked into a boutique hotel in downtown Seattle. They'd had dinner at a waterfront restaurant. They'd walked through Pike Place Market holding hands. They'd visited a winery in Woodinville. Each update came with photos. Marcus laughing. Marcus with his arm around Vanessa. Marcus kissing her on a street corner. I looked at each photo once, saved it to the evidence folder, and closed it. I didn't let myself feel anything. Not yet. There would be time for feelings later. On Friday evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. For a moment, I thought it might be Vanessa again. But the voice was male, older, uncertain. Is this Jennifer Sawyer? Yes. Who's this? My name is Richard Peterson. I'm Marcus's supervisor at work. My stomach dropped. Is something wrong? Is Marcus okay? Marcus is fine, as far as I know. But Mrs. Sawyer, I'm calling because I'm confused. Marcus requested time off this week, said it was for a family emergency, but then I saw social media photos of him in Seattle, apparently on vacation. I wanted to check if everything was all right with your family. I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course, Marcus had lied to his work too. Mr. Peterson, can I call you back in a few minutes? Of course. I hung up and immediately called Rachel. We have a problem, or maybe an opportunity. I explained about Peterson's call. Rachel was silent for a moment. This is good, actually. It establishes that he lied to his employer too. Call Peterson back. Be honest with him, but don't go into too much detail. Just confirm that there's no family emergency and that you weren't aware Marcus had taken personal time off. I called Peterson back. Mr. Peterson, I apologize for the confusion. There's no family emergency. I wasn't aware Marcus had requested time off this week. He sighed, the sound of a man dealing with employee problems he'd rather avoid. Mrs. Sawyer, I don't want to pry into your personal life, but I need to know if Marcus has been honest about his work travel. What do you mean? He's been taking a lot of trips lately, more than his position requires. I've approved them because he said they were meeting potential clients, doing site visits. But I'm starting to wonder if that's true. Mr. Peterson, I think you and I should have a conversation, but not over the phone. Can we meet in person? Of course. When? Monday morning, before Marcus gets back? I'll be in my office at 8. On Sunday evening, Marcus came home. He looked rested, happy, younger somehow. The way people look after a good vacation. Hey, he said, dropping his suitcase in the hallway. I missed you. How was Seattle? Cold, rainy, exhausting. Peterson worked me to death. The lie came so easily, so practiced. Did you close the deal? Not yet, but it's promising. We're going to follow up next month. More lies, building on lies. A whole architecture of deception. Emma ran downstairs and hugged him. Dad, did you bring me anything? He pulled a small package from his carry-on. A Seattle Seahawks keychain. Something he'd probably grabbed at the airport on his way home. Thanks, Dad. We had dinner like a normal family. Marcus told stories about Seattle, carefully edited versions that removed Vanessa, removed the truth, removed anything real. Emma laughed at his jokes. I smiled and nodded and played my part. That night, in our bedroom, Marcus pulled me close. I'm sorry I've been gone so much lately. I know it's hard on you and Emma. It's your job. I know, but still, I'm going to try to cut back on the travel. Spend more time at home. I wondered if that was true, or if Vanessa had asked him to travel less because she was tired of sharing him, or if he was starting to feel guilty, or if it was just another lie. That would be nice, I said. He kissed me, and I let him, and I hated myself for it. Hated that I could still pretend. Hated that part of me still wanted to believe him. Hated that 12 years of love didn't just disappear because he'd betrayed it. But I was doing this for Emma, for the house, for the future. I could survive a few more weeks of pretending if it meant protecting what mattered. On Monday morning, I met Richard Peterson at his office. He was in his mid-50s, graying hair, tired eyes, the look of a man who'd spent decades managing people and was weary of the games they played. Mrs. Sawyer, thank you for coming. Call me Jennifer. He gestured to a chair. Jennifer, I'm going to be direct with you. I've been in management for 20 years. I've seen this before. The excessive travel, the lies, the performance slipping at work. I think Marcus is having an affair. I appreciated his honesty. He is. Peterson nodded slowly. I'm sorry, that must be difficult. What's his performance been like at work? Declining? He's missing deadlines, making mistakes, showing up late. 6 months ago, he was one of our best employees. Now I'm considering putting him on a performance improvement plan. Is that common with people having affairs? Unfortunately, yes. The stress, the lying, the mental energy it takes to maintain two lives. It affects their work. They make mistakes they wouldn't normally make. Mr. Peterson, can I ask what happens if an employee is found to have lied about business travel? Using company resources for personal trips? His expression hardened. That's grounds for termination. We have clear policies about honesty and appropriate use of company time and money. I took a breath. Marcus has been lying about his travel. He's been using supposed business trips to carry on an affair. I have documentation proving it. Peterson leaned back in his chair. How certain are you? Completely certain. I have photos, receipts, witness statements. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked. Because you deserve to know the truth about your employee. And because I'm filing for divorce and I need to establish a complete pattern of his deception, not just to me, but to everyone around him. Peterson was quiet for a long moment. Jennifer, I can't take action based on what you've told me without conducting my own investigation. But if you're willing to provide documentation, I'll review it. I am. Then send it to me. And Jennifer, I'm sorry you're going through this. For what it's worth, I always thought Marcus was lucky to have you. I left his office feeling something new. Not just sadness or anger, but a kind of grim satisfaction. The walls were closing in on Marcus, slowly, carefully, but inevitably. He just didn't know it yet. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of playing the dutiful wife while building my case, document by document, photo by photo. Rachel called it strategic patience. I called it survival. Patricia's investigation had yielded more evidence than I'd expected. Photos of Marcus and Vanessa in 3 different cities. Hotel receipts in his name with occupancy for 2. A video of them kissing in a restaurant parking lot, completely unguarded, completely in love. David, the forensic accountant, had completed his analysis. Marcus's gambling debts totaled $67,000, significantly more than I'd originally thought. He'd been hiding accounts, using cash advances, borrowing from sources I didn't even know existed. This is actually helpful, David explained during our meeting. The more debt we can prove he incurred independently through deceptive means, the less you'll be responsible for in the divorce. Richard Peterson had conducted his internal investigation. Marcus had falsified expense reports, claimed business meetings that never happened, and used company resources for personal travel. Peterson called me personally to confirm what I already knew. Marcus was being terminated. They'd give him 2 weeks, standard severance, but he was done. We'll tell him on Monday, Peterson said. I wanted you to know in advance. Everything was converging. The evidence was overwhelming. The case was solid. It was time. On Friday evening, I told Emma we were going to have a family meeting after dinner. She looked nervous, the way kids do when they sense something important is coming. Am I in trouble? No, baby. You're not in trouble at all. We just need to talk about some changes. Marcus came home at his usual time, whistling, completely unaware. He'd been in a good mood lately. Vanessa must have been keeping him happy. After dinner, after the dishes were cleared, I asked Emma to go to her room for a little while. We need to talk to you about something, but Dad and I need to speak first. She looked between us, worry creasing her forehead, but she went upstairs. Marcus sat at the kitchen table. What's this about? You're being mysterious. I pulled out my laptop and opened the evidence folder. My hands were steady. My voice was calm. Marcus, we need to talk about Vanessa. The color drained from his face. Absolute, complete shock. He'd been so careful, so confident in his deception, that he'd never considered the possibility that I knew. I don't. Who is. What are you talking about? I turned the laptop around and played the audio recording. Vanessa's voice filled the kitchen, cheerful and confident, detailing their affair. I've been seeing your husband for 8 months. We met at a conference in Chicago. Marcus's face went through a dozen expressions in 30 seconds. Shock, denial, anger, fear, resignation. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Jen, I can explain. Don't. My voice was sharp, harder than I'd meant it to be. Don't insult me with lies. I know everything. Seattle, Miami, all of it. I have photos, receipts, witness statements. I have 8 months of documentation. He slumped in his chair like a puppet with cut strings. How long have you known? Since Vanessa called me. 2 weeks after you got back from Seattle. Or should I say 2 weeks after you got back from your romantic getaway with your mistress. She called you? To gloat, to tell me you loved her, to push me out of the way so you two could be together. I closed the laptop. She did me a favor, actually. She gave me the confirmation I needed. Marcus put his head in his hands. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. Maybe he couldn't either. Jen, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. For 8 months, you looked me in the eye and lied. You kissed me, slept in our bed, ate dinner with our daughter, all while building a second life with another woman? It wasn't like that. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Affairs don't just happen, Marcus. They're a series of choices. You chose to flirt with her. You chose to exchange numbers. You chose to meet her for drinks. You chose to book a hotel room. Every single step was a choice. He was crying now, shoulders shaking. I was unhappy. I felt trapped. I needed something, someone who made me feel alive again. And instead of talking to me, instead of going to counseling, instead of being honest about your feelings, you chose to betray me. I know it was wrong. But Jen, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through this. I'll end it with Vanessa. I'll do whatever you want. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood was settling into evening. Lights coming on in houses. Families settling in for the night. Normal lives, or at least the appearance of them. Marcus, I don't want to fix this. I want a divorce. The word hung in the air between us, heavy and final. No, Jen, please, think about Emma. Think about our family. I am thinking about Emma. I'm thinking about what it would teach her if I stayed with a man who lied to me, betrayed me, gambled away our money, and showed her that this is what marriage looks like. The gambling. His voice went quiet. You know about that too? I know about all of it. The $67,000 in debt, the falsified expense reports at work, the lies to your boss. I know everything, Marcus. I've spent 2 weeks documenting every single piece of your deception. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You've been planning this? I've been protecting myself. And Emma, because you clearly weren't going to. Are you going to tell her about Vanessa? No. She doesn't need to know those details. She just needs to know that we're getting divorced, that it's not her fault, and that we both still love her. We can't tell her tonight. It's too much, too sudden. We're telling her tonight. She already knows something is wrong. Kids aren't stupid, Marcus. She's been watching us fall apart for months. At least now she'll have an explanation. Jen, please, I'm begging you. Give me another chance. I'll end things with Vanessa. I'll get help for the gambling. I'll be better. I turned to look at him. This man I'd loved for 13 years. This man I'd built a life with. This man who'd destroyed everything we had because he was too selfish to think about anyone but himself. Marcus, I gave you chances. Every time you came home late. Every time your story didn't quite add up. Every time I found something suspicious and decided to trust you anyway. I gave you chances. You just didn't take them. So that's it? 13 years of marriage? Gone? Just like that? No, not just like that. Slowly. Over 8 months of lies. Over years of financial irresponsibility that I covered for. Over countless moments when you chose yourself over us. This has been ending for a long time. I'm just the first one to say it out loud. He stood up, came toward me. Jen, don't touch me. He stopped, hands hanging at his sides. What happens now? I've already filed for divorce. You'll be served papers on Monday. I'm asking for primary custody of Emma, child support, spousal support for 5 years, and the house. You keep your debts. I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer. You can't just take everything. I'm not taking anything that isn't rightfully mine. The house is in my name. I've been the financially responsible parent, and I have documented proof of your infidelity and financial deception. You can fight it if you want, but you'll lose. And it will cost you money you don't have. You've really thought this through. Someone had to. I called Emma downstairs. She came slowly, reluctantly, and sat between us at the table. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. I said gently. Dad and I need to tell you something. She looked at Marcus, then at me. You're getting divorced. The words shouldn't have surprised me, but they did. How did you know? I'm not stupid, Mom. I've heard you guys fighting. I've noticed Dad is never home. I've seen the way you look at him, like you're sad and angry at the same time. She wiped her eyes. Is it my fault? No. Marcus and I said it at the same time. At least we agreed on that. I reached for her hand. Emma, this has nothing to do with you. This is between Dad and me. Grown-up stuff. But we both love you more than anything in the world, and that will never change. Where is Dad going to live? Marcus answered, his voice thick. I don't know yet, kiddo. But I'll find a place nearby. You'll still see me all the time. Can I still do sleepovers at Dad's new place? Of course, I said. We're going to work out a schedule where you spend time with both of us. Nothing about our love for you changes. She nodded, processing, trying to be strong. Okay. Do you have questions? I asked. Will we have to move? No, this is still our home. Will I have to change schools? No. Everything stays the same for you, as much as possible. She looked at Marcus. Dad, did you do something bad? He closed his eyes. Yeah, kiddo. I made some mistakes, big ones, and I'm so sorry that you have to deal with the consequences. Did you cheat on Mom? The question hung there, sharp and knowing. She was 11, not stupid. Marcus looked at me, silently asking permission. I nodded. She deserved honesty, at least about this. Yes, I did, and it was wrong, and I'm so sorry. Emma stood up. I'm going to my room. Marcus reached for her. Don't, just don't. She ran upstairs. We heard her door slam. Marcus looked destroyed. She hates me. She doesn't hate you. She's hurt, confused, angry. She needs time. How are you so calm about all this? I gathered my laptop and the folders of evidence. Because I've had 2 weeks to process it. You're just starting. And Marcus? Tomorrow you need to find somewhere else to stay. You can't be here anymore. This is my house too. Actually, it's not. It's in my name only, remember? Because your credit was too bad to qualify for a mortgage. You can pack a bag tonight. I want you gone by morning. He stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the woman he'd married wouldn't have had the strength to do this. But she was gone, replaced by someone harder, someone who'd learned that nice didn't keep you safe. That night, I heard him moving around in the guest room, packing. I heard him crying. I felt nothing. I checked on Emma. She was in bed, staring at the ceiling. "Can I come in?" "Yeah." I sat on the edge of her bed. "I know this is hard. Are you okay, Mom?" The question surprised me. "I will be. You seem different. Stronger, maybe." "I had to be." She turned to look at me. "I heard some of what you said to Dad, about the evidence and the planning. You knew for a while, didn't you?" "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I needed to make sure we'd be okay. That we'd have the house, that we'd have money, that your life would stay as stable as possible. I had to build a case first." "That's really smart, and kind of scary." I smiled. "Yeah, both of those things." "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you still love Dad?" I thought about it. Really thought. I love the man I thought he was, the man I married, but that man might not have ever really existed. Or maybe he did, and he changed. I don't know anymore. That's sad. Yeah, it really is. She reached for my hand. "I'm glad you're my mom. I'm glad you're my daughter." I stayed with her until she fell asleep, and then I went back to my room where Marcus used to sleep, where his pillow still smelled like him, where 13 years of marriage was ending with a whimper instead of a bang. And I cried. Finally. Not for him, but for the life I'd thought I was building, for the future I'd imagined, for the family that was now fractured. But when I was done crying, I dried my face, straightened my shoulders, and went to sleep knowing that tomorrow would be hard. But I would be harder. I had to be. For Emma. For myself. For the life we were going to build without him. Marcus left the next morning before Emma woke up. I found a note on the kitchen counter, his handwriting shaky. "Staying at a motel near work. Will call about arrangements for Emma. I'm sorry. For everything." I threw the note away and made breakfast. When Emma came downstairs, her eyes were swollen from crying. She looked around the kitchen as if expecting to see her father. "He's gone," I said gently. She nodded and sat down at the table. "Mom, is it okay if I'm mad at him?" "Yes, you can feel however you need to feel. But I still love him." "I know. Those two things can exist at the same time." Over the next few days, I established a new routine. Emma and I had breakfast together every morning. We talked about school, friends, normal things. We didn't talk about Marcus unless she brought him up, which was rarely. He called her every evening. Their conversations were brief, stilted. He'd ask about her day, and she'd give one-word answers. The easy relationship they'd had was gone, replaced by something more fragile. "Give it time," I told her. "He's your dad. You'll figure out a new way to be together." "What if I don't want to?" "That's your choice. No one can force you to have a relationship you don't want." The divorce papers were served to Marcus at work on Monday, as planned. He called me immediately, angry and desperate. "Did you have to serve me at work? Everyone knows now. It's humiliating." "You humiliated yourself. This is just documentation." "My lawyer says you're asking for too much. The spousal support is excessive. 5 years is ridiculous." "Your lawyer can take it up with mine. I'm not negotiating with you directly." "Jen, please, can we at least talk about this like adults?" "We did talk. You lied for 8 months. We're done talking." That same day, Richard Peterson called Marcus into his office. I didn't hear about it until later, from Rachel, who had connections everywhere. Marcus had been fired, not given a choice to resign, fired for cause, falsifying expense reports, misuse of company time, lying to supervisors. His reputation in the industry was destroyed. Finding another job at his level would be nearly impossible. He called Vanessa, Rachel told me. Crying, desperate, she broke up with him. I felt something then. Not quite satisfaction. Not quite pity. Something colder. How do you know that? Patricia kept monitoring. Vanessa posted about it on a private account, thinking it was secure. She called him a liar, said she'd been deceived just like you, said she wanted nothing to do with him. So Vanessa had learned. The fantasy version of Marcus didn't exist. The real version was a liar, a gambling addict, a man with nothing but debt and broken promises. What about Marcus's finances? I asked. Rachel pulled out a folder. It's not good. He has $67,000 in debt, no job, no income, and he'll owe child support and spousal support. Unless he finds work immediately, he's going to have to declare bankruptcy. Will that affect me? No. We've ensured all joint debts are separated. His debts are his alone. The house is protected. Your retirement accounts are protected. You're insulated. What about Emma's college fund? Also protected. It's in a trust with you as the sole trustee. He can't touch it. Over the next month, the reality of Marcus's situation became clear. He moved from the motel to a cheap apartment in a worse part of town. He took a job at a retail store, making $15 an hour, a fraction of his previous salary. He showed up to the custody hearings looking defeated, wearing clothes that didn't fit right, with the hollow eyes of someone who'd lost everything. The judge reviewed the evidence. The affair, the gambling, the lies, the financial irresponsibility. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that I'd entrapped him, that the recording was inadmissible, that I'd been vindictive in my documentation. Rachel destroyed every argument with cold, precise facts. This wasn't entrapment. This was documentation of behavior that would have happened regardless. The recording was legal under state law, and protecting one's assets and children from a spouse's deception wasn't vindictive. It was responsible. The judge ruled in my favor on every point. Primary custody to me, child support based on Marcus's current income, with provisions to increase if his income increased. Spousal support for 5 years. The house, the cars, the retirement accounts, all mine. Marcus got supervised visitation until he could prove he'd addressed his gambling addiction. He got his debts. He got the consequences of his choices. When we left the courthouse, he tried to approach me. Jen, please, can we talk? No. 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. Rachel stepped between us. Mr. Sawyer, any communication needs to go through legal channels. Leave my client alone. He looked at me over her shoulder. Was it worth it? Destroying me like this? I didn't destroy you, Marcus. You destroyed yourself. I just documented it. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Emma and I went to the beach for spring break. Just the two of us. We stayed in a small cottage, walked along the shore, collected shells, talked about everything and nothing. On the last night, we sat on the porch watching the sunset. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you regret marrying Dad? I thought about it. The good years, the laughter, the way he used to make me feel safe, Emma's birth, the memories that weren't tainted by what came after. No, I don't regret it, because I got you, and the good years were real, even if they didn't last. Do you think you'll ever get married again? I don't know. Maybe. But I'm not in a hurry. I kind of like it being just us. She smiled. Me too. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the waves, and I realized something. I was okay. Not just surviving, but okay. The fear I'd carried for so long, that I couldn't make it without him, that I needed him, that I was too weak to stand alone, all of it was gone. I'd been stronger than I knew. I'd been smarter than he'd given me credit for, and I'd protected what mattered most. 6 months later, I was promoted at work. The extra income meant we could travel more, save more, breathe easier. Emma joined the school debate team and discovered she was good at arguing. She got that from me, apparently. Marcus sent emails occasionally, apologizing, asking if we could try again, promising he'd changed. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. Vanessa tried to contact me once more, a year after everything fell apart. She sent a long email explaining that she'd been deceived too, that Marcus had lied to her about everything, that she was sorry for the pain she'd caused. I read it once and deleted it. Her apology was for herself, not for me. People asked if I was bitter, if I hated him, if I wanted revenge. The truth was simpler than that. I didn't hate him. I didn't think about him at all. He was a chapter that had ended, a lesson learned, a reminder that you can't trust someone's words when their actions tell a different story. 2 years after the divorce, Emma and I moved, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. We found a smaller house closer to her school, with a big backyard and a garden. We painted the walls bright colors. We hung art we actually liked. We made it ours. On the day we moved in, Emma stood in the middle of the living room and said, "This feels right, like a fresh start." Yeah, it does. Mom, thank you. For what? For being strong, for protecting us, for not letting him make you small. I hugged her tight. You're welcome, baby, but I didn't do it alone. You made me want to be strong. That night, after Emma went to bed, I sat on our new porch and thought about the phone call that had started everything. Vanessa's voice, confident and cruel, thinking she'd won something. She hadn't won. Neither had Marcus. And really, neither had I. There were no winners in betrayal. Only survivors. But surviving was enough. Building a new life was enough. Showing my daughter that strength doesn't mean staying in situations that hurt you. It means having the courage to leave them. I looked at my phone, at the recording I'd kept all this time. The evidence that had changed everything. I'd listened to it dozens of times in those first few weeks, memorizing every word, letting the anger fuel my determination. I didn't need it anymore. I deleted the recording. I deleted the photos. I deleted everything except the legal documents required for the divorce. All the evidence of Marcus's betrayal, all the proof of Vanessa's cruelty, gone. Because I didn't need to carry it anymore. I'd gotten what I needed. Freedom, security, peace. The rest was just wait. I went to bed in my new house, in my new life, and slept without dreaming, without fear, without regret. And in the morning, when Emma made us breakfast and we laughed about her burning the toast, I realized I was happy. Genuinely, completely happy. Not in spite of what happened. Not because of what happened. Just happy because I'd survived it, grown from it, and come out the other side as someone stronger. The woman Marcus had married wouldn't have recorded that call, wouldn't have built a case, wouldn't have had the strength to walk away. But that woman was gone. And in her place was someone who knew her worth, who protected what mattered, who understood that love without respect was just a pretty lie. And I would never settle for a pretty lie again. 5 years passed. 5 years of building a life that was entirely ours. Emma was 16 now, sharp and confident. Nothing like the scared 11-year-old who'd watched her world fracture. She had her father's eyes, but my spine, and I was grateful for that every day. The spousal support had ended 6 months ago, per the divorce agreement. Marcus had never managed to rebuild his career. Last I heard, he was working as an assistant manager at a car rental place, living in a studio apartment, still alone. Emma saw him every other weekend, mostly out of obligation. Their relationship was cordial, but distant. The way you might treat a distant relative you barely know. He'd missed too many important moments: school plays, debate competitions, her 16th birthday. Each absence created another small gap that never quite closed. I'd thought about him less and less over the years. He'd become a character in a story I used to tell myself, someone who felt less real with each passing year. I'd dated casually, nothing serious. I'd focused on work, on Emma, on the quiet contentment of a life without drama. Then one Tuesday afternoon, a letter arrived. Handwritten envelope, my name in Marcus's familiar script. No return address. I almost threw it away unopened. But Emma saw it on the counter when she came home from school. "Is that from Dad?" "I think so." "Are you going to read it?" "I don't know. Does it matter to you if I do?" She shrugged, that teenage gesture of practiced indifference. "Not really, but maybe he has something important to say." I doubted it. 5 years was a long time to find the right words. But I opened it anyway, more out of curiosity than anything else. The letter was 3 pages long, front and back. Marcus's handwriting had always been neat, but this was different. Smaller, cramped, as if he'd been trying to fit too many thoughts onto the page. "Dear Jennifer, I know I have no right to write to you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I'm doing this anyway because I need to say things I should have said 5 years ago, or 13 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, before I became the kind of man who destroys everything he touches. I'm in therapy now, have been for 3 years. Court mandated at first, for the gambling, but I kept going even after the requirement ended. My therapist says I need to take accountability, not just for what I did, but for why I did it. I was selfish. That's the simple truth. I was selfish and weak, and I prioritized my own comfort over everything else. Over you. Over Emma. Over the life we built together. When I met Vanessa, I told myself I deserved happiness. I told myself our marriage was already over. I told myself 100 different lies to justify what I was doing. But the truth is simpler. I was a coward. I was afraid of getting older, afraid of being ordinary, afraid of facing the fact that I'd made mistakes and had to live with them. So instead of fixing my problems, I ran from them. I gambled because it made me feel powerful. I had an affair because it made me feel young. I lied because the truth was too hard to face, and in the process, I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. You. I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not writing to ask for another chance. I know that ship sailed a long time ago. I'm writing because you deserve to know that I understand what I did. I understand the pain I caused. I understand that the woman who recorded that phone call, who built a case against me, who protected herself and Emma, that woman was doing exactly what she should have done. You were smarter than me, stronger than me, better than me. And I was too stupid to see it until everything was gone. I've thought a lot about that phone call, about Vanessa calling you to gloat, about how she thought she was winning something. I wonder sometimes if you knew, even then, that it was all going to fall apart. If you could see the future, I couldn't. Vanessa left me 4 months after you filed for divorce. She said I wasn't the man she thought I was. She was right. The man she knew was a fantasy, the same fantasy I'd been selling you for years. The difference was, you finally stopped buying it. I lost my job. I lost my career. I lost my reputation. I lost you and Emma and the house and everything I'd taken for granted. And I spent a long time being angry about it. Angry at you for recording the call. Angry at Vanessa for exposing me. Angry at the universe for not letting me have my cake and eat it too. But therapy has taught me something. I wasn't angry at any of you. I was angry at myself. Because deep down, I knew I'd deserved everything that happened. I'd built my own prison with lies, and you just held up a mirror so I had to see what I'd become. Emma tells me you're doing well, that you got promoted, that you bought a new house, that you seem happy. I'm glad. Truly. You deserve happiness after everything I put you through. She also tells me you're seeing someone. A doctor, she says. Someone kind. Someone who treats you well. I'm glad about that too, even though it hurts to know I could have been that person if I'd just been better. I don't know what I'm trying to say with this letter. Maybe that I'm sorry. Maybe that I understand now what I couldn't understand then. Maybe that I hope, someday, Emma will forgive me even though I don't expect you to. Or maybe I'm just trying to have the last word, even now. That would be like me, wouldn't it? Always needing to explain myself, to justify, to make sure my version of the story is heard. But here's the truth, the real truth. You were right about everything. The recording, the divorce, protecting yourself and Emma. All of it. You did what you had to do, and I'm the one who forced you to do it. I don't expect a response. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. All of it. The pain I caused. The damage I did. The future I destroyed. I hope you're happy. I hope Emma is happy. I hope the life you've built is everything you wanted it to be. And I hope someday, when enough time has passed, you can think about the good years without bitterness. Not for my sake, for yours, because you deserve to remember that once, before I ruined everything, we were happy. Marcus. I read the letter twice. Then I set it on the counter and made dinner. Emma found me stirring pasta sauce an hour later. What did it say? He apologized, said he understands what he did, said he's in therapy. Do you believe him? I thought about it. Maybe. People can change. Sometimes it just takes losing everything to figure out what mattered. Are you going to write back? No. Why not? I turned to face her. Because there's nothing to say. He's right that I don't forgive him. But I don't hate him either. Nothing him. He's a person I used to know who made choices that hurt me. But that was a long time ago, and I've moved on. Do you think he's really changed? I don't know, and it doesn't matter. He's not my responsibility anymore. He's just the man who used to be my husband. She nodded, processing. That's kind of sad. Yeah, it is. That evening, after Emma went to bed, I sat with the letter one more time. There was something in it that bothered me, something I couldn't quite name. Then I realized what it was. Even in his apology, even in his acknowledgement of wrongdoing, Marcus was still making it about him. His pain, his growth, his understanding. The letter was framed as a gift to me, but really it was for him. A way to absolve himself. A way to say he'd learned his lesson and was a better person now. Maybe he was. Or maybe he'd just gotten better at performing remorse. I thought about the woman I'd been when Vanessa called. Anxious, uncertain, afraid of what I'd lose. I thought about the woman I'd become. The one who'd recorded the call, built a case, protected her daughter and herself without flinching. That transformation hadn't been about Marcus. It had been about me, about discovering I was stronger than I'd known, about learning that love without respect was worthless, about understanding that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is walk away. Marcus's letter wanted me to acknowledge his growth, but I didn't owe him that. His growth was his business. Mine was mine. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer, not to keep as a memento, but because Emma might want to read it someday when she was older. When she was trying to understand her father, to make sense of who he'd been and who he'd become. But I didn't need it. I'd already made sense of all of it years ago. The next morning, my boyfriend Daniel asked if I was okay. We'd been seeing each other for 8 months now. He was patient, kind, nothing like Marcus. He didn't ask me to be less than I was. He celebrated my strength instead of feeling threatened by it. I'm fine. Marcus sent a letter. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. It was just him trying to make peace with himself. It doesn't change anything for me. Daniel nodded. He didn't push, didn't demand I share my feelings or process it with him. He just accepted what I said and let it be. That was the difference. Marcus had always needed me to validate his feelings, to reassure him, to make him feel better about his choices. Daniel just let me be, and that freedom was worth more than 1,000 apologies from a man who'd never really seen me. 2 weeks later, Emma came home from a visit with Marcus looking thoughtful. Did something happen? I asked. Dad asked if I'd read his letter to you. I said I didn't know he wrote one. What did he say? He said he was trying to apologize, that he wanted you to know he understood what he did. Then he asked if I thought you'd ever forgive him. What did you tell him? I said I didn't know, that it wasn't my business. She paused. Mom, do you think I should forgive him? I sat down next to her. Emma, forgiveness isn't something anyone else can tell you to feel. It's not a switch you flip because someone apologizes. It's something that happens or doesn't happen based on your own healing. But he's trying. Isn't that worth something? It's worth something to him. Whether it's worth something to you is a different question. She was quiet for a long time. I'm still mad at him, for the lying, for cheating on you, for all the times he's let me down. But I also love him, and I hate that both things are true. They can both be true. Love doesn't erase hurt, and hurt doesn't erase love. You get to feel complicated things about complicated people. Did you love him back then? Yes, very much. Do you still? I thought about it carefully, wanting to give her an honest answer. I love the memory of who he was before everything fell apart. I love the parts of him that gave me you. But the man he became? No. I don't love him anymore. And I haven't for a long time. That's what I'm afraid of. That I'll wake up one day and realize I don't love him either. And if that happens, it'll be okay. You get to love people as much or as little as they've earned. And if your father's choices have made it hard to love him, that's on him to fix, not on you to force. She hugged me tight. Thank you for being honest. Always. That night, I finally threw away Marcus's letter. Not in anger or spite, but because I didn't need it cluttering my drawer. His apology had been noted, his growth had been acknowledged, and now it was time to let it go entirely. I didn't need his words to validate my choices. I'd already known I did the right thing. The recording, the evidence, the divorce, all of it had been necessary. Not to punish him, but to protect myself and Emma. And we were protected. We were thriving. We were happy in a way I'd never been during the marriage, even in the good years. Because this happiness was built on truth, not on pretending things were fine when they weren't. 5 years ago, Vanessa had called to Gloat. She'd thought she was winning, She'd thought she was taking something I wanted, but she'd actually given me a gift. She'd given me permission to stop pretending, permission to see clearly, permission to save myself. I'd taken that gift and built a new life, a better life, a life where I didn't shrink myself to make room for someone else's ego, where I didn't accept lies because the truth was uncomfortable, where I didn't sacrifice my peace for someone else's comfort. Marcus's letter had said he hoped I could remember the good years without bitterness, but I didn't remember them with bitterness. I remembered them with clarity. They'd been real at the time, but they'd also been built on a foundation of denial and enabling that couldn't last. The woman I was now wouldn't have married Marcus, but the woman I was then needed to marry him, to learn those lessons, to discover her own strength through the breaking. So I wasn't bitter. I was grateful, not for the pain, but for what the pain had taught me, that I was stronger than I knew, that I deserved better than I'd been accepting, that love without respect was just another pretty lie, and I was done believing pretty lies. 8 years after the divorce, Emma graduated from high school, top of her class, scholarship to a prestigious university, a future as bright as I'd always known it would be. The graduation ceremony was bittersweet. My parents were there, beaming with pride. Daniel sat beside me, his hand warm in mine. We'd been married for 2 years now, a quiet ceremony with just family, nothing like my first wedding with its grand promises and expensive lies. Marcus sat on the other side of the auditorium with his mother. He'd gained weight, gone gray at the temples. He looked older than 53, worn down by years of consequences he'd spent a decade earning. When Emma's name was called, we all stood, we all cheered, and for a moment, I felt something unexpected. Pity. Not the soft kind that excuses, but the distant kind you might feel for a stranger who'd made bad choices and lived with them. After the ceremony, there was a reception at our house. Emma had specifically requested that both her parents be there. Just for a few hours. Continue 11:23 a.m., Mom. We can be adults about this. So Marcus came. He stood awkwardly by the food table, making small talk with people who'd known him before the fall. Some were kind, some were coldly polite. Everyone knew what he'd done. In a small community, those stories don't fade. Daniel approached him at one point. I watched from across the room, ready to intervene if needed. But they just talked. Two men who'd both loved the same woman in different ways. Later, Daniel told me what Marcus had said. He told me I was lucky, that you were the best thing that would ever happen to me, and I should never forget it. What did you say? That I already knew. Near the end of the evening, Marcus asked if he could speak to me privately. Emma encouraged it. Just hear him out, Mom, for me. We went out to the back porch, the same porch where I'd once folded his clothes and believed his lies. 8 years had changed everything and nothing. The space was the same. We were completely different. Thank you for letting me come, Marcus said. Emma wanted you here. This is her day. She's amazing. You've done an incredible job with her. We both raised her. You might not have been there for everything, but you're still her father. He nodded, looking out at the yard. I've been thinking a lot about that phone call, the one from Vanessa. Do you ever think about it? Not really. Why? Because it changed everything. In one moment, you had all the power. You could have yelled at her, cursed her, broken down, but instead you stayed calm. You recorded it. You used it. I protected myself. No, it was more than that. You were strategic. You saw the opportunity and took it. That's when I realized I never really knew you. I thought you were soft, pliable, that you'd always forgive me. But you were just waiting for the right moment to stop. Is that what you wanted to talk about? Ancient history? I wanted to thank you. That surprised me. For what? For recording that call? For building the case? For forcing me to hit bottom? If you'd forgiven me, if you'd taken me back, I would have kept gambling. I would have kept lying. I would have destroyed us completely. But you didn't let that happen. You protected Emma and yourself. And in a weird way, you protected me too. From myself. I studied his face, looking for manipulation, for the old patterns. But I saw something different now. Genuine regret, hard-won wisdom, the kind you only get from losing everything. Marcus, I didn't do it for you. I did it because I had to. I know. But the result was the same. I got help. I stopped gambling. I started being honest, even when it hurt. And yeah, I lost everything. But I found something too. Self-respect. Sobriety. A reason to get up in the morning that wasn't about running from something. I'm glad you got help, for Emma's sake. Not for yours? No, what you do with your life isn't my concern anymore. He smiled sadly. That's fair. I guess I'm just trying to say that I understand now. Why you did what you did. How you did it. And I don't blame you for any of it. I never needed your forgiveness, Marcus. I made the right choice. I knew that then. I know it now. I'm not offering forgiveness. I'm offering gratitude. There's a difference. We stood in silence for a while. Inside, I could hear laughter, music, the sounds of Emma celebrating with friends. Her future spreading out before her, unburdened by the mistakes her parents had made. She's going to do great things, Marcus said. Yes, she is. And a lot of that is because you showed her strength. You showed her that love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. That's worth more than any amount of money or stability. She figured that out on her own. I just modeled it. That's what good parents do. I looked at him then, really looked. Marcus, why are you really here? Why are you saying all this? He took a breath. Because I'm getting remarried. Next month. A woman I met in therapy. She knows everything. The gambling, the affair, all of it. And she's choosing me anyway, but the healthy version. The honest version. I'm happy for you. I wanted you to hear it from me. Not through Emma or the gossip mill. I wanted you to know that I'm moving on. Finally. Really. Okay. And I wanted to make sure you're okay with that. That it doesn't hurt you or make things weird with Emma? I almost laughed. Marcus, I've been remarried for 2 years. I moved on a long time ago. You getting married doesn't affect me at all? So we're good? We're not good. We're just done. There's a difference. But yes, you have my blessing, if that's what you're asking for. Be happy. Be honest with her. Don't make the same mistakes. I won't. I can't. I know too much now. Emma came out then, flushed and happy. There you guys are. People are leaving. Dad, do you need to go too? Yeah, kiddo, I should head out. He hugged her tight. I'm so proud of you, more than I can say. Thanks, Dad. He nodded to me, a gesture of respect from a safe distance, and left. Emma watched him go. Was that okay, having him here? It was fine. It was good, actually. He needed to see how well you've turned out. Did he say anything weird? He thanked me. For the divorce, basically. Said it helped him get his life together. Emma laughed. That's so Dad, making his own rock bottom about personal growth. At least he grew. I guess. But Mom, thank you for not staying with him. Thank you for showing me that leaving is an option when someone treats you badly. A lot of my friends, their moms stayed in bad marriages because they thought that's what they had to do. You taught me I don't have to. I hugged her close. You never have to accept less than you deserve. Remember that. I will. That night, after everyone left, after the house was quiet, I sat with Daniel on the porch. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just thinking." About? About how different my life could have been if I'd stayed, if I'd forgiven Marcus, if I'd convinced myself it was enough. "But you didn't." "No, I recorded the call instead." He kissed my temple. "Best decision you ever made." "Second best. Best was saying yes when you proposed." We sat in comfortable silence, and I thought about that phone call 8 years ago. Vanessa's voice, cruel and confident. My finger pressing record. That one decision, that one moment of clarity that changed everything. People always asked if I regretted it, if I wished I'd handled things differently, if I'd been too harsh, too calculating, too cold. But I'd never regretted it, not for a single moment, because that recording had given me proof. Proof I wasn't crazy, wasn't paranoid, wasn't overreacting. Proof that my instincts were right. Proof that the man I'd married had become someone I no longer recognized, and that proof had set me free. Free to build a life that was honest. Free to raise a daughter who knew her worth. Free to find love with someone who celebrated my strength instead of fearing it. Vanessa had called to gloat. She'd thought she was winning. She'd thought she was taking something precious from me. But she'd actually given me the greatest gift anyone had ever given me. She'd shown me exactly who I was dealing with, and she'd done it clearly enough that I couldn't pretend anymore, couldn't make excuses anymore, couldn't lie to myself anymore. So in a strange way, I owed her. I owed her for being cruel enough to call, for being arrogant enough to confess everything, for being stupid enough to think that love built on lies could ever last. She'd taught me that love without honesty is worthless, that passion without respect is empty, that a man who lies to his wife will lie to everyone. And I'd taken those lessons and built something real, something that lasted, something that mattered. The recording was long gone, deleted years ago, but its legacy remained in every choice I'd made since, in every boundary I'd set, in every time I'd chosen truth over comfort. Marcus had thanked me for it tonight, for recording, for leaving, for forcing him to face consequences. But I hadn't done it for him. I'd done it for me, for Emma, for the future I knew we deserved. And that future was here now, bright and clear and honest. Emma was going to college. I had a partner who loved me without games. Marcus was rebuilding his life the right way. Everyone was where they needed to be. And it had all started with a phone call I'd had the wisdom to record. "What are you smiling about?" Daniel asked. "Just thinking about how things work out, how one decision can change everything." "Like recording that call?" "Yeah, like that." He pulled me closer. "I'm glad you did. Otherwise, we never would have met. Best revenge is living well, right?" "Is that what this is? Revenge?" I thought about it. No, revenge would mean I was still thinking about him. This is just happiness. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. I'll drink to that. We sat there as the stars came out, as the night settled around us, as the life I'd fought so hard to build wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Somewhere across town, Marcus was probably reflecting too, on what he'd lost, on what he'd learned, on the woman he'd underestimated. And Vanessa, wherever she was, probably didn't think about me at all. She'd been a minor character in someone else's drama, discarded as soon as the fantasy ended. But I thought about her sometimes, not with anger or bitterness, but with a strange kind of gratitude. Because she'd given me permission to save myself, and I'd taken it. And that made all the difference. 10 years after the phone call that changed everything, I was invited to speak at a women's conference. The topic? Financial independence after divorce. Emma suggested I share my story. Mom, people need to hear this. How you protected yourself, how you planned, how you didn't just react emotionally. I'd never told the full story publicly. Pieces of it, sure, to friends, to Emma, to Daniel, but never the whole arc from Vanessa's call to where I stood now. The conference was in a hotel ballroom, 200 women ranging from 20s to 70s. Some going through divorces, some contemplating them, some just wanting to learn how to protect themselves. I stood at the podium, notes in front of me, heart steady. 10 years ago, I got a phone call that should have destroyed me. I began. My husband's mistress called to tell me about their 8-month affair. She was young, confident, cruel. She wanted me to know that she'd won, that he loved her, that I was just an obstacle in their way. The room was absolutely silent. I could have screamed at her, could have cried, could have begged her to leave my husband alone. But I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I pressed record on my phone, and I let her talk. I saw nods around the room. Recognition. Women who'd been there, who understood that moment when you realize you're not dealing with a person who respects you. For 23 minutes, she detailed everything. Dates, locations, conversations she'd had with my husband. She told me how he said he felt trapped, how they'd planned a future together, how I was just the obligation keeping him from his real happiness. I paused, remembering. And the whole time, I stayed calm. I asked questions, I gathered information, because I knew something she didn't. In my state, you only need one party's consent to record a phone call. Everything she was telling me was admissible in court. Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. That recording became the foundation of my divorce case. But it wasn't the only thing I documented. For 2 weeks after that call, before I confronted my husband, I gathered evidence. Financial records showing gambling debts he'd hidden. Credit card statements with suspicious charges, hotel receipts. I hired a private investigator who photographed him with his mistress in multiple cities. I built a case like I was preparing for trial. Because I was. I clicked to the next slide, showing a generic organizational chart. Here's what most people don't understand about divorce. Emotion loses, documentation wins, the wife who throws her husband's clothes on the lawn, who posts angry messages on social media, who tells everyone she knows about the betrayal, she looks unstable, she looks vindictive, and that hurts her in court. Another click. But the wife who stays calm, who documents everything, who acts strategically, she wins. Not because she's colder, but because she's smarter. Because she understands that protecting yourself requires clear thinking, not just clear feelings. A woman in the front row raised her hand. But weren't you angry? Didn't you want to hurt him? Of course I was angry. I was devastated. But I also had an 11-year-old daughter and a mortgage, and a future to protect. I couldn't afford to be ruled by anger. I had to channel it into action. I told them about hiring a divorce attorney before confronting Marcus, about opening a separate bank account, about securing my assets, about getting a forensic accountant to separate marital debt from his gambling debts. By the time I confronted him, by the time I played that recording, I'd already filed for divorce. I'd already protected everything that mattered. He didn't have time to hide assets, to empty accounts, to prepare a defense. I'd taken away his ability to control the narrative. Another woman raised her hand. Did you feel guilty for being so calculated about it? No, because calculated isn't the same as cruel. I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't lie. I didn't manipulate. I just documented the truth and used it to protect my daughter and myself. That's not guilt-worthy. That's responsible. I told them about the divorce proceedings, how Marcus's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, how my lawyer presented the evidence calmly, methodically, irrefutably, how the judge ruled in my favor on every point because the facts were on my side. Primary custody, child support, spousal support, the house. Everything I'd asked for, I got. Not because I was mean or vengeful, but because I'd proven my case. Because I'd shown that he was financially irresponsible, unfaithful, and deceitful. I clicked to a photo of Emma's graduation. This is my daughter now. She's in college, studying law, actually. She saw what documentation and strategy could accomplish, and it inspired her. She wants to help other people protect themselves legally. Pride surged through me as I said it. Here's what I want you to understand. You don't owe your betrayer mercy. You don't owe them the benefit of the doubt. You don't owe them a gentle exit from a situation they created. What you owe yourself is protection. What you owe your children is stability. What you owe your future is a clean break from someone who's proven they don't value you. I looked around the room. Some of you are going through this right now. Some of you suspect it, but don't want to believe it. Some of you are staying in situations that hurt you because leaving seems harder than staying. Deep breath. But staying has a cost too. It costs you your self-respect. It costs you the example you set for your children. It costs you years of your life that you could spend building something real instead of protecting something broken. A woman in her 50s was crying quietly. I knew that look. That was the look of someone recognizing herself in my story. The recording was just the beginning, but it changed everything. It gave me proof I could hold in my hand when I doubted myself. When he tried to gaslight me, to say I'd misunderstood, to claim the affair wasn't serious, I had her voice saying otherwise. I had documentation. I had truth. I clicked to the final slide, a quote I'd written myself. Love without respect is just a pretty lie, and you don't owe pretty lies your future. The room erupted in applause. Women stood. Some were crying, some were taking photos of the quote, some were just nodding, that deep recognition of a truth they'd needed to hear. After the presentation, the line to speak with me stretched across the ballroom. Women with stories similar to mine. Women asking for advice. Women thanking me for being honest about the strategic side of leaving. One woman, probably in her 30s, waited until the end. I'm recording calls too, she said quietly. He doesn't know I know. I've been gathering evidence for 6 weeks. Are you safe? I asked. Physically, yes. Emotionally, barely. But I'm preparing, like you did. Then you're going to be fine. The preparing is the hardest part. The leaving will be easier because you'll know you did everything right. She hugged me, this stranger who understood. That evening, I called Emma to tell her how it went. Mom, I'm so proud of you. You helped people today? I just told the truth. That's what helping is sometimes. Just telling the truth when everyone else is pretending. After we hung up, I sat with Daniel and reflected on the past decade. The woman I'd been when Vanessa called felt like a different person. Scared, uncertain, people-pleasing, willing to shrink herself to keep the peace. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who knew her worth, who understood that kindness to yourself sometimes looks like ruthlessness to people who've taken advantage of you. Do you ever regret it? Daniel asked. Being so public about what happened? No. If my story helps even one woman find the courage to protect herself, it's worth it. Marcus might hear about it, that you're speaking publicly. I know. He's entitled to his feelings about that, but I'm entitled to my truth. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. It was Marcus. Jen, can we talk? What about? I heard you gave a speech. About our divorce. About Vanessa's call. About the recording. I did. You made me sound like a monster. I told the truth. If the truth makes you sound like a monster, that's a different problem. You didn't tell the whole story. You didn't talk about how I was struggling, how the gambling was an addiction, how I was depressed. Marcus, your struggles don't excuse your choices. I was sympathetic to all of that when we were married. I tried to help you. But you didn't want help. You wanted enablement, and I'm not responsible for making you look good in a story where you behaved badly. People are going to judge me. People already judged you. This doesn't change anything except that now you can't control the narrative. He was quiet. Then, did you tell them I thanked you? At Emma's graduation? Did you mention that I've changed? No, because my speech wasn't about your redemption arc. It was about how I protected myself from your destruction. Your growth is your story. This was mine. That's fair, he said quietly. I just wish you'd warned me. Like you warned me before you started an affair? Silence. Marcus, I'm not going to apologize for taking control of my own story. For 10 years, I let other people's versions of what happened shape how I saw myself. People who said I was too harsh, too calculating, that I should have given you another chance. But I'm done with that. I know what I did was right, and if sharing it helps other women, then I'm going to share it. I understand. I hoped we were past all this. We are past it. This isn't about you anymore. It's about me using my experience to help others. You're just a character in the story. He laughed bitterly. A character. That's what I've become. That's what you made yourself. I'm just no longer pretending otherwise. After we hung up, I felt no guilt, no second thoughts, just clarity. For years after the divorce, I'd softened the story when I told it, made Marcus seem more sympathetic, made myself seem less strategic, because I'd internalized the message that women who protect themselves too well are somehow wrong, too cold, too unforgiving. But I was done with that narrative. The truth was, I'd been smart. I'd been strategic. I'd protected my daughter and myself with intelligence and planning. And there was nothing wrong with that. Nothing to apologize for. Nothing to soften. Women needed to hear that they could be strong without being cruel. That they could be strategic without being evil. That protecting yourself wasn't the same as seeking revenge. The recording had been the catalyst. But the real power had come from what I'd done with it. How I'd used it as part of a larger strategy to secure my future. And now, 10 years later, that future was everything I'd fought for. A daughter who was thriving. A partner who respected me. A career I was proud of. A life built on honesty and self-respect. That night, I pulled up the note on my phone where I'd typed out Vanessa's words all those years ago, transcribed from the recording before I deleted it. I did this every few years just to remind myself. I've been seeing your husband for 8 months. He tells me he feels trapped. We want to be together. Young, arrogant words from a woman who thought she'd won something. I wondered about her sometimes, where she'd ended up, whether she'd learned anything from the experience, whether she'd ever called another woman to gloat about an affair. Probably not. People like Vanessa rarely learned those lessons. They just moved on to the next situation, the next drama, the next person to hurt in their quest for whatever they thought they deserved. But that wasn't my concern anymore. It never had been, really. She'd been a catalyst. Nothing more. A voice on a phone who'd accidentally done me the biggest favor anyone had ever done. She'd shown me who I was dealing with, and I'd taken that information and built a new life. 10 years later, I was standing on stages telling other women how to do the same, teaching them that documentation beats emotion, that strategy beats rage, that protecting yourself is an act of love, not revenge. And every time I saw a woman nodding in recognition, every time someone thanked me for being honest about the calculated side of leaving, every time someone said, "I needed to hear this," I knew. That phone call, that recording, that choice to stay calm and press record instead of falling apart. It hadn't just saved me. It was still saving people. One story, one woman, one decision to protect herself at a time. And that was worth more than any pretty lie I could have told myself about giving him another chance. Epilogue. 15 years after Vanessa's call, Emma called me with news. "Mom, I'm engaged." My heart soared. "Tell me everything." His name was Jason. They'd met in law school. He was kind, honest, hardworking, everything she deserved. "Mom, I need to tell you something. About how I knew he was the right one." "What's that?" "We had a fight. A big one. About something important. And I was so angry I almost walked away. But then I remembered what you told me once. About how you stayed calm when Vanessa called. How you used your brain instead of just your emotions. So I told Jason I needed time to think. And I thought about what I really wanted, what I really needed, what was actually happening versus what I feared was happening. And I realized he hadn't actually done anything wrong. I was reacting to my fear of being like you. You know, married to someone who lies. But Jason isn't Dad. He's honest, sometimes painfully so. So I went back and we talked it out. Really talked. And Mom, it was the best conversation we've ever had. Because I was clear instead of just emotional. I smiled through tears. "Em, that's not about me. That's about you being smart and self-aware." "No, Mom. It's about you showing me that being strategic doesn't mean being cold. That protecting yourself doesn't mean not taking chances. That you can love someone and still keep your eyes open." After we hung up, I sat with that for a long time. The recording had been my catalyst. But what I'd built from it, the lessons, the strength, the clarity, that was the real legacy. Not revenge on Marcus. Not victory over Vanessa. Just the simple, powerful truth that you could love someone and still require them to earn it. That you could be kind and still protect yourself. That you could survive betrayal and come out stronger. Emma had learned that, and she'd carry it into her own marriage, her own life, her own future. And somewhere, someday, maybe she'd share it with her own daughter. This story of how her grandmother got a phone call that should have broken her, and instead used it to become unbreakable. That was the truth I'd finally made peace with. Vanessa hadn't called to gloat. She'd called to set me free. She just didn't know it. But I did. And I'd spent 15 years turning that freedom into something beautiful. Something true. Something worth sharing. And that made all the difference.